Got a call last night from an old friend's wife, said I hate to.
All right, and we're back to the Sounds Like Life podcast with Darryl Worley. It feels a little different today. This has been one of the most intimidating podcasts to prep for, from my perspective, because
I see that.
it's you wrote one of the most iconic patriotic songs that our country has. And as I did my research and as I studied and went back to that time and just heard the lyrics, man, our friendship grew with me sitting in my recliner because of the respect, just for the things that you went through. And I know where this episode's going, and I know we're going to have to pull a lot of that out and the emotions that are fixing to hit the table. And
That's all right.
we might have to pour a drink in the middle of this or something just to get through it. But hey, we'll make it work. So
Yes, sir. Yeah, and thank you for taking this seriously and doing that research, because we laughed about this, but you were in the 6th grade.
yeah, no joke.
And I'm sure more about that'll come out, but I was not. And,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's bound to be intense. That's how country folks would say that. This is bound to be intense, but there's also there's always a silver lining, and there's been some really incredible things to come out of this as far as lessons about taking it on the chin and not letting it destroy you.
Yeah.
So
where were you that day? Where were you at in life? And it's not just location wise, but where was Darryl Worley in his life?
We've been out on the road, and I was just getting started. It was really, really early in my career.
Mm-hmm.
We had the first single came out in 2000, so this all happened in 2001.
Yeah.
So we're just trying to figure things out on the road, and we had just rolled back into Nashville on the tour bus, and we had that particular day we had the option to. Most of the buses at that time, I'm not sure if I had one or two then, but probably just the one at this point. But it was locked out, I'm sure, so we probably had it for 6 months or something. And most of the time, you come into town and you wouldn't have to get off the bus so that the bus company could have it back by noon.
Yeah.
It was, but we rolled in about 3 a.m. I remember that 2:30, 3 a.m. And when the bus stopped at the Kroger, that's where we left our vehicles at that time in Hermitage. When the bus stopped, it woke me up, and I thought, I'm just going to roll over and go back to sleep, and I couldn't go back to sleep. And I thought, man, my house, my townhouse is a little duplex kind of a deal, is probably 3 blocks away.
Mm-hmm. And
I said, I'm probably going to wake a few people up, or what I might do is just leave all my stuff, because this bus will probably be here till 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning. A lot of guys are just going to sleep in, I thought I could go get in my bed and really sleep. And so I grabbed a few things, probably didn't get all of my stuff, and I went to the house, which is just literally, you could throw a rock to it.
Mm-hmm.
You could almost see it from the parking lot of Kroger. And I went to the house and crashed. And I hadn't been in the bed very long, and I just remember at that time, we had answering machines that were sitting there on the kitchen table, and I'm upstairs in the bed, and I just kept hearing it woke me up, phone ringing, people leaving messages, phone ringing, and I'm thinking, that ain't normal. Something's going on. Get up, and I'm thinking, oh boy, this felt good to lay down in my own bed, blah, blah, blah. So I get up and I go downstairs and I push the button, and it's these like insane messages, and I'm thinking, what in the world?
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody leaves a message that has some pretty good detail, and I'm thinking, oh, I got to get. So there's only one TV in the whole apartment. It's really like a townhouse, and that's Bryce's. So Wynn had gone off and married Martha White, or Marcia, his wife, and Bryce moved in, and so Bryce had the only TV.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I didn't have time to watch TV. There was an old TV downstairs, I think, but it was shot. So I'm thinking it's pretty early, but I'm waking him up because something serious is going on. I got to see the TV. So I go upstairs and wake him up, and I said, get up, sit up. I've got to turn your TV on. And we sat there on the side of his bed. One plane had already hit one of the towers, and they were going back and forth. I said, this is a terrorist attack. I told Bryce, I said, this is a terrorist attack, and they're trying to cover it up right now to keep people from panicking. And he goes, oh, don't go there, we don't know. And I said, I promise you this. I said, this. Then we're just sitting right there talking, and the other plane comes in, and he looks at me, and the guy on the TV goes, we have confirmation, blah, 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 whatever it was he said, that we were under attack. And I just remember the first thought that crossed my mind was Pickwick Dam. I just thought of Pickwick Dam. I thought if they're hitting targets all over our country, a big power generating dam like that, all up and down the Tennessee River Valley, all of those could be targets, and that's right by my house, man. I said, my family's there, so I jumped in I just grabbed, swung by the tour bus, told the guys that were left there what was going on, and man, you could see people just scurrying to their vehicles, and I lit out for Savannah. I left Nashville and headed down on the back roads so that I wouldn't get trapped on an interstate somewhere. And man, I'll just throw this out there at this point. My life was. When is my life not in a weird place? But it was a different time. Things were fine with me. We were kind of, trying to figure the business thing out, and I mean, we weren't necessarily thinking. We just had released. Well, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. What I was going to say is, on the way home that day, it had already turned into like a parade route. There was red, white, and blue. There was banners. There was it's not. The event's not even over yet.
Right.
We don't even know. I hadn't heard anything about the Pentagon. I heard that on the radio driving home.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, people are already out. They're sticking flags in the ground, and I'm driving, and I'm going, look at this.
Yeah.
And then I got this horrible sinking feeling. It had to come to this for us to fly the red, white, and blue. What in the world? And an occasional house along that route always had the flag flying. Of course, that was still there, but now you got all this other stuff. So I'll leave it at that for now, and we'll talk more about that red, white, and blue parade route as we travel through this.
So this is a great segue, because obviously you created, you and Wynn wrote, Have You Forgotten?
Yeah.
Which talks about. It's basically that patriotic cry of, guys, why does it take this? Why all of those things? And I want to dig into that deeper here in just a second. But Mike, if you'll pull up the Fox News clip, because this is relevant today. This is relevant right now with current news.
Wow.
When I was doing the research, I found this clip because, like you said, I was in 6th grade, so I've seen things, but I want to develop my own opinions now.
Of course, yeah.
And this is one of the clips I found. So our friends at Fox News with this alert that came out not too long ago.
Yesterday, we learned news about Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and 2 other terrorists responsible for 9/11. They're accepting a plea deal, no death penalty if they plead guilty, and they've agreed to that. The families, they had a meeting yesterday, a discovery hearing, where all the evidence from 23 years ago was finally unsealed. They were able to get answers, and we knew someone who was in the room with her 2 sons. They lost their dad, she lost her first husband, and she said it was just brutal to sit in that room for 7 hours, hear all the evidence unsealed, and watch the terrorists, hear the terrorists laughing. She said, I'll never get that laugh out of my head. How do you feel about this plea deal?
In many respects, it's evil, and it's a betrayal for these 9/11 families. 23 years later, we're still losing first responders to 9/11 health-related illnesses on a monthly basis. You heard the words of the UFA president and the PBA president, heartbroken, betrayal, devastated. And I think that's the collective response from 9/11 families. This does not seem like justice. And a year ago, I sent a letter to President Biden and the Department of Justice demanding that they do not enter into a plea agreement, that they take it to trial, and push for the death penalty. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed should rot in hell for eternity.
He will one day.
He definitely will. But it should be a lot sooner than it will be. And I think that's where so many families feel today, that this was a miscarriage of justice. And for those families to have to endure 7 hours yesterday and hear the laughter from these terrorists, it speaks volumes to, obviously, the evil among us.
Right. And one of the problems with the case, we've known pretty much what has happened for decades. But given the fact that they were taken to some of these CIA dark sites, there was waterboarding, interrogation. Some people refer to it as torture. That would contaminate everything they said as evidence. And so the worry was, okay, we'll have the trial, but next thing you know, they'll win on appeal. They'll throw it all out.
Because we're paying for their lawyers.
Look, obviously there's complexity within our legal system, and you want to ensure a fair trial, yes, but we also know that Khalid Sheikh Mohammed admitted his involvement in masterminding this terrorist attack 23 years ago, and this resulted in the death of 2,977 Americans.
Well,
that's the bottom line.
What's your perspective on that? It's a loaded question, but
yeah, it's, some people would have to really search, but I don't, 3,000 people. I can't imagine a plea deal. That's the most insane thing I've ever heard. I understand the complexity of our legal system, but boy, and to think about those people having to sit in there and listen to them laugh,
it's a whole new perspective,
man. I just it's this platform is a little scary because, if I was sitting at home right now with my wife, well, call her, she'd tell you what I'd say.
Is that serious? Because I will, but
no, you call her, and I guarantee you she'd probably tell you something that you wouldn't want to put on here. But to try to dumb it down a little bit and take the crude Darryl Worley out, which is a whole lot of who Darryl Worley is. I mean, unfortunately, but people, would come up with every kind of debate and argument on this thing about the death penalty and all that stuff, because there's a lot that can be said. I mean, there's, you could argue the biblical side of this and all kinds of other things. For me, like, we've had the death penalty in our nation in different states and what have you for the whole time we've been a nation.
Yeah.
And there have been many people put to death for the murder of one person.
Right.
Right?
One.
Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay. So
and so here's where I mentioned this to you earlier. One of the things that I am thankful for with this podcast. I'm the guy who loves to research and loves to study, but hated school. Don't give me a test on it all, but let me go digging. Let me go start some debate. Let me go do some of those things. And so family was coming home from Nashville as we were prepping for this, and I just leaned over to Jessica and said, hey, what's your opinion on the death penalty? And immediately she said, as a Christian, I don't believe it's real. It should happen. And that was my response was, okay. And in true Jessica fashion, she starts spitting off, in her mind and in her opinion, where she feels like, the Bible says, very clearly about eye for eye, tooth for tooth. It goes into some of those things, goes into how the justice system, the legal system is so flawed. And so why do we think as man that we're capable of not only taking someone's life, but sentencing to that and possibly preventing their salvation? I looked at her and I thought, okay. I said, okay, you win for now. Because I'm driving home from Nashville. I'm thinking this is going to be an easy, just, let's get some conversation going. Kids are watching a movie in the background. And I said, I'm gonna do some research on this. And so, which I wish we had this when I was in college. I just go to Facebook and say, all right, guys, I'm doing some research. I want your opinion. Tell me where you stand. And I'll tell you what was neat. I gave folks the option. Here's my cell phone. Send me a private message or comment below. And I ended up with about 22 people that sent me private messages and a bunch of comments. It was really neat to see the opinions not have a political backing.
Right.
Because I figured, okay, I know where most of my people stand.
Sure.
And I figured, okay, this side, Democrats are going to be this way and Republicans are going to be this way.
Right.
There was no data that proved either side of that, which was neat.
Yeah,
I thought that was really cool.
Yes.
And I had some really good statistics. I've got a friend that I went to college with who's a lawyer now in Memphis, and he's a criminal defense attorney. And he said, hey, I'm the one that has to defend a lot of those scumbags. And it's hard.
I can imagine.
But I also see where 4 to 10% of people that have been sentenced to death are completely innocent.
That's scary.
And I thought, okay, so now you've got my attention.
Yeah, that's scary.
And you go into, then you get into the statistics of, okay, there were arguments that people brought out about how, the government has all of its flaws. We're now saying government can choose. So that doesn't even, the government can, that's okay.
It's
so
ridiculous.
there's that innocence.
But you also have to take into account that in this situation, there's no question about whether they're guilty or innocent.
And I was going to go with this.
I'm sorry.
There's no, this is no question.
Right.
I mean, to me, and I'll get in trouble
Well,
for saying
he
this.
admitted it.
Put that in a firing squad. That's not a go to sleep.
Yeah, I was thinking hanging.
True. I mean, something.
Yeah.
Then of course the data came up. Someone posted the statistics that said $42,672 is the average cost to house an inmate in the U.S. So the average inmate on death row is 20 years. That's $862,000. Wow.
Yep.
The other statistic that I thought was very interesting was the argument of, and this person was absolutely pro-death penalty, speed the process up, and said, take that money, spend it on free Department of Education regulated childcare. So now your kid, when that kid's born, they start a education system when they're born, and let's invest that $862,000 in that kid early.
Right.
And let that be the deterrent instead of saying, if you mess up, we're going to kill you.
Right.
So I thought that was fascinating. So again, we're some neat statistics there. And then the one that I got that my brother-in-law sent me, because I've got a brother-in-law who's a pastor, another brother-in-law who leads worship. So, in my mind, same thing. And then my father-in-law has more degrees than he can count. And so I sent them a group text and said, okay, here's what I'm going into. Tell me what your thoughts were. And my brother-in-law sent back Genesis 9:6. Whoever sheds the blood of a man, by man, his blood shall be shed. For the image of God has God made man. And I was like, wow, I hadn't thought of it that way, but that's the shepherd protecting the flock. And that makes that statistic about the innocent a little bit different too.
Yeah,
And so
I agree.
So once I got all this data back, I sat down with Jessica and said, all right, now I'm ready to have have this side of the argument. And so I was I wanted to bring some of that to see your perspective and hear, because you've seen so much in your life. And obviously with 9/11 and those types of things, what's your take on all of it?
Well, I would be pretty staunch as far as I don't have any kind of feelings of remorse or reserve in saying that it would be my hope that those people would get the death penalty.
Yeah.
And all this stuff that we've talked about has merit.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that. I'm stepping over that and saying, how long has it been? Since 2002.
22 years.
Yeah. So, who knew that writing "Have You Forgotten" would spawn into what happened with that song and how it would affect my life? But Wynn and I were talking about this when we sat down to write "Have We Forgotten?"
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I've got a 22-year research project of sharing this heavy burden with these people, and I just can't see it another way.
Yeah.
I can't. And because it's their burden, and because this song is kind of my burden, the weight of this, I can't see. I have a really difficult time not feeling the weight of all of these people that I've come in contact with. And I could just start naming family after family after family. And not only that, you also have to look at what happened to our country and to its young servicemen and women as a result of what these people did. Look at the thousands who have died and come home maimed, and it's just heavy. And so there'd just be almost no way to sway me from how I feel about it, because I see what it's done to our people and all the people connected to those people and all the people connected to those people. So I'm not a horrible, brutal person, but in this situation,
Yeah.
it's just pretty cut and dried for me. And I try to understand how other people feel, and I respect people for putting up their arguments and their debates and standing their ground. I also understand your wife and her conviction on that. I totally do.
Yeah.
I'm not even saying that she's not right.
Right. Well, and that's something we won't know till that day.
That's right, but I'm not saying that at all. As a matter of fact, she has a really good grounds. I mean, you had it up there.
Yeah.
It is what it is. So, and some people say, yeah, but that was a different covenant. That was an Old Testament thing, and all blah blah blah. Well, it's a lot that you could throw out there, but for me, it's the 20 years plus of seeing what this did to people. And, you know, like on the interview, the guy said, we still have first responders that are going to, well, they'll just be dying for years
Yeah.
from, you know, what they went through and all of the complications.
So one of the things I want to do with this, because I've heard a couple stories with the lyrics, and you'll hear some of it when we told the story on the Opry episode, because of how cool the song came about. I want to take a deep dive into some of the lyrics, because I've heard you tell the story behind the line that I think has so much punch to it, about some people are just out looking for a fight, and have you forgotten?
Yeah.
And that's a cool story. So I'd love to, Mike's going to pull up the lyrics so we can kind of go through some of it. But, man, tell me about this process. Tell me about the emotions you went through and when with the process, and just let's take a deep dive into that and spend some time, because I think people would love to hear some of these stories, and that I know you want them to know that every single one of these lines has so much depth to it. And I'd just love to hear it.
Yeah, we the thing about the whole thing is that it's so real, and it was so in that moment, and it was what made this song. It's what made people just sit up and say, "Have you heard that song?" Because it was kind of written in such a fashion that it's conversational almost, you know, and it would be the topic of conversation anywhere you went, because we were reeling. The country was, you know, still reeling, even when we wrote it. And so Wynn and I sat down just right after I got home from my first journey to the war zone in Afghanistan. And that was definitely one of the most surreal experiences of my life. And what we, you know, witnessed and were a part of was history, like a piece of unbelievable history unfolding. And so my co-writer and I were definitely on the same page.
Yeah.
We, you know, he had not been on that journey, but he was so excited and willing to sit down, and the passion and the emotion was all just fresh and new, like just a freshly opened wound, you know, and we just started hammering it out, and we wanted it to be real common everyday language, you know, like you would, me and you would talk, and it would be that kind of things, and every line
has that feel,
is
that coffee shop feel, that
exactly
that we're sitting, yeah.
And so I got to tell you, when we, you know, I don't know if you wanted to hear this or not, but so the guy that said that line, our country's just out looking for a fight, as a real person, you know. And I was telling Wynn, it's kind of part of what got us rolling on this thing, and he said, man, I had explained to him that he was standing outside of the gym where I work out in my hometown, and I think it was 9/12, because I got home, and then I went to the gym the following day, and his daughter was trapped. This guy has passed now, so I say all this in respectful memorial of him. He's a dear friend of mine. You know, he's a pretty staunch Democrat, and so I'm putting it out there right now. I have friends that are Democrats.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you. And
I don't. Just kidding.
And he made it. He you know, he said he was really broken down about his daughter being trapped, but they had only communicated one time for a very short period of time. They couldn't reach her again. You know, it was going to be so long before she could get out of there. He was just about in tears, you know. And so you fast forward, you know, a very short period of time when I come back from, I mean, this is right after it happened.
Yeah.
And then you fast forward till we wrote the song, and that day before we wrote the song, he was down there, you know, saying that stuff, bashing the government and talking about how we were just going anywhere we could to stir up. And I said to him, I said to him, come outside, because I didn't want to have it.
Conversation
This
for
may
everybody.
get ugly in here, and I don't want to do it inside the gym. So we stood outside the door, and I said, ain't you the same guy that was about crying out here in the parking lot because your daughter was trapped in New York? And he just looked at me like, just this blank stare. And I said, no, seriously. I said, I need to know, because I said, what would you have us to do? I mean, we get these terrorists on the run and keep them on the run. It could prevent something like this from happening
sitting
again.
there planning it again.
Yes. I mean, you don't think they saw what a
he had
devastating blow it was to our nation, and how they. You don't think they saw that and thought, man,
immediately,
we need to
let's
do
do it
this
again.
again as quick as we can. And so
And he had no solution.
it's just that kind of banter. So anyway, so I sat down with Wynn and we talked, and I was explaining this to him, and that's how it all came about. He goes, oh man, he said, I know exactly where you're coming from. And he told me this episode that he had, and he said, I swear to you, he's gritting his teeth. He said, I just want to reach and grab this guy and get him around the throat and just shake him and say, have you forgotten? And I went, and I looked at him and he goes, what? Just like that. And I said, that's probably the title of the song. That's probably that's the question that we should pose. And I said, that'll go a long way. Because who would have forgotten this quickly?
Yeah. And they had.
It almost, well, and you know what? I was even feeling a little bit of that guilt myself.
Yeah.
Even coming right off of that trip, I'm thinking, so I was just going to say this, and then I'll let you think about this. But when I came home from the war zone and I made the drive, I went the same way that I drove the day of 9/11. And that shorter period of time, the only flags that were flying were the ones that always flew. Everything was gone. It took that short period of time for us to completely, that was where this all came from. That's the stuff that me and Wynn Varble sat and talked about that day. That's what made us feel sick in our guts, that we have fallen victim to a media or whatever it's a lot of stuff. It's forces at work that we don't even understand, but it's all around us, and it's telling us to forget about things that are unforgettable. It's telling us it's making us weak. And I think that this song came against that. It said, this is not who we are.
It relit that fire.
Yeah.
It did.
Yeah, in a moment in time it did. And
I don't know, because so going back to that, because you had a moment in time, and I've heard you say that a couple times, but 2 times recently that I've watched you perform that just shocked me was at Whiskey Jam during CMA Fest. And they're all 21 to 23-year-old kids.
That's right, and less.
and some had snuck in, but there were tears rolling down their cheeks. They were singing every word. So don't shortchange yourself by saying a moment of time, because that song still rings to them. And then at the Republican National Convention, with that group of the manufacturer, when watching them sing that, they were, and the pride, which that was a big week, big moment, big all kinds of energy. And when you hit that, I mean, it just, you're up there playing a 3-piece acoustic, and I heard the full band with the lights, and I mean, I'm just hearing the whole thing, and it was just, man, it's it's magic. I mean, it's really some good stuff, and that's and it's so interesting. And I know we're going to have an entire episode on, probably several, with the songwriting and the songwriting process. But just to think that you and Wynn were sitting there having buddy conversation and said, "Have you forgotten? That's going to be a song." Who would have ever isn't that cool? And that's what's so neat.
When he said that,
yeah,
it was absolutely no doubt in my mind, none, when he spoke that to me in his little description of what had happened,
Yeah.
I just went, okay. It was like there was someone else speaking to me at the same time that said, "Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Did I? That didn't fall on
Right.
deaf ears,
That-
did it?" And I went, "Okay."
That was and like you say, Wynn's saying what?
He goes, "What?"
So how long did the process take?
We wrote it in about an hour and a half.
No way.
Yeah, and then, we had a couple of lines. See, we had the sick bastard line in there. Thanks to some sick bastard named Bin Laden, and we'd already, as soon as which you have to know that Wynn and I are not just. We're calculated. We didn't say that just to be saying, hey, we get to say bastard in a song.
Right.
That's biblical. That's kind of that's a takeoff on some scriptures that we would,
Okay.
refer back to.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things where we immediately started going, well, radio ain't gonna play that. We've got to have an alternate line. So we had a pretty decent, what we felt like was a template, and let's go eat a bite, because a big part of that morning was just sitting there talking.
Yeah.
And let me. I was trying to make him understand what I had just gone through in the war zone, and how I just, and he's like, you did what? And then you saw that? And because he was eating it alive, man. We were just going back and forth, and then we got off on where our country was with what had just happened, and it was just a very unusual day. And we went and had lunch, came back, and the line with the sick bastard in is the only line we changed. We just picked it up. We picked it apart to find little things that needed fixing, and there just wasn't any. It was channeled. Let me tell you something. If I've ever known anything like this in my life, it was all part of a bigger plan.
Yeah.
We were just pawns in the game, and we did what we were supposed to do. We were well directed, and we trust that. We have faith in that. We always have, and we still do. And when you see the rest of it unfold, it just makes perfect sense, because nothing any of us could have done, not DreamWorks, not all their money, not all their people, nobody could have orchestrated what happened with that song.
Yeah.
So
you and kind of going through our timeline, as uniquely as that process was for it to just come out in an hour and a half, basically that day, it hit radio airwaves in another completely unique way. We talk about it backstage at the Opry, which made it cool. I know that was the Ryman Opry that
Right.
it actually happened that night, but it kind of felt nostalgic and was kind of cool. So we'll have to go do it at the Ryman next time we do a podcast. So, but yeah, so you tell that story in that episode about how, you guys played it at the Opry, and next thing you know, before you even had it cut, it's on air.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where you were jumping earlier. You had another song that's my favorite that was out, and it just got, it hit a brick wall.
It got hammered. You know what it is these big radio stations, very seldom does any artist get two songs played at the same time with enough significant airplay to climb the charts.
Really?
Some songs do get played at the same time, but it's usually when one's going up and one's coming down.
Gotcha.
And so, Family Tree was a victim. And, it's sad too, because the song was doing good, and it's a really great song. A friend of mine wrote it, and the story behind that song is wonderful, and we were having fun with the whole thing, and just got caught up in the
in the mix
circumstances.
And so you tell some stories about how that song just, it took off, and it really. Tell me about that with your career, and fill us in where we are in the story.
Well, I've said this a million times, and I hate to say it, but because people don't understand, and people think all people can really wrap their head around is that how could that not be the greatest thing on earth? And this song was actually a blessing in a huge, huge way, but it's also a curse. I mean, you can't imagine the things that happen when a song like that happens. I won't spout off all the statistics, but 7 weeks at number one is all you need to say. That's a monstrous thing. It's a phenomenon. It's an achievement that that doesn't happen very often, and it changes everything in your whole life.
Right.
It changes your career. It changes everything. And so, so much happened. Imagine, it runs its course, which took it a while, and then you're faced with the challenge of, well, what's our next big single going to be? What? So we had 2 or 3 of those that nobody even knows about because they couldn't get out of the starting gate because radio was saying, yeah, it's an okay song, but it ain't no Have You Forgotten.
Yeah.
And so you're going, there's some great songs on this record, but I don't know, how many Have You Forgotten do I need to
How many in your life do you get to have?
Exactly.
Most artists would love to have that one hit in their lifetime. And
sure. To get around it, though, is and that's just one thing. I mean, it's so bizarre because we didn't know what we had. We couldn't control it.
Yeah.
It controlled us, and the label was just as dumbfounded by the whole thing as we were. Their first response was, this is just a knee-jerk reaction. It'll be gone by Wednesday.
Yeah.
And, by Wednesday, they're going, we better get something recorded because it's going to be at the top of the charts before we can even get a real record out.
Wow, yeah.
That's how fast. It went 5 weeks to number one. That was a record.
That's quick.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's
it's
by
hard.
a couple weeks.
It's
hard. So
to-
what's a normal? What's a normal?
Yeah, it takes a fast one at that time was 8 or 10 weeks, and that's fast. I mean, that's moving on to get there that quick. That's 2 months, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to go in the studio and record something and then go through all the things that have to be done to get that edited and mastered and have that finished in 5 weeks.
Yeah.
It's hard to do that in 5 weeks. And so we had to double time it, triple time it to get that record fished. So get it out there. And then, how it affected my touring and all that, we were just getting to the part, we'd had the number one with I Miss My Friend, and we were getting to the part of, my career where now we're solidified kind of as an up-and-comer. We've got some validity because of hits, and, everything that we've had has been significant. And so people are starting to take notice and going, okay, so we're playing dates with Alan Jackson. We got the Brooks and Dunn tour. Like I'm feeling in on the Brooks and Dunn tour, I'm filling in for Brad Paisley, who had the slot right before them. And I'll tell you this real quick. I'm not trying to completely – you guys can cut out any of this stuff and use what you want to, but it's a great story because it speaks volumes about how this thing was so difficult to know what to do with it. So we're out there – right after the song goes number one, we're playing this big, massive amphitheater in St. Louis. I think it was AT&T or something another at that time. Maybe it was one of the cell phone. I don't know. It's something else now. A huge amphitheater, and we go on like 30 minutes. We play 30 minutes right before Brooks and Dunn comes out. It's their headlining the whole thing, and this is their Only in America tour where they have the stairwells that fold down on the last song. They're playing Only in America, and the Marines come down in their dress blues, come down those stairs. They get Marines from every little town they go and play in, or around America. They have these Marines coming down. It's just a big to do. That's their whole
big production.
Their whole set is designed
For
around
that
that moment. Yes. And so we go and we play that, and I play a couple of covers and 2 or 3 hit songs that have been doing good for us. I miss my friend, was out there and had been #1. We got a big response on that. But when we started Have You Forgotten, it was life-changing for me. It was the biggest crowd we'd played at that point. The whole pavilion was full without an empty seat, and then the lawn, as far as you could see back up that hill, was just no more room for people. And I was like, ooh, just that alone, walking out there was powerful,
Right.
So I didn't think anything about it. I thought, okay, so okay, boys, we're going to close with this thing. Just went #1. I don't know if you folks have heard a song called "Have You Forgotten." It was deafening. I just went, turn my audience mics down, and the big lighters lit up. It's just I can't. We started playing that song, and it was just a roar.
Yeah.
And within like the first chorus, people start singing every word of it to the point where we couldn't hear ourselves. We couldn't hear nothing. We're just mouthing it and looking
Trying
at
to
this
make it,
insanity in front of us. Well, it was just as big as we thought it was, because Monday morning, the Brooks and Dunn's management called my management and said we won't be needing Darryl no more.
Can't
Wait a minute.
Can't follow him on that.
Wait a minute. Did you see that response? Yes, we did.
Yeah. And we don't want to go after
They
that.
just said it plain and simple. They said, anybody in their right mind would do what we're doing. We love him. He's wonderful. But we can't. That's just insanity. We can't. Their
follow
whole,
that.
like I just said, their set was designed to, and they said after his song it was anticlimactic. The whole thing was, it took the breath out of the whole night. And they just said so. And so, I said all that to say this: you have to have that interaction with these huge acts to build your foundation. And it interfered with that for us. It always has been a problem, because it's branding. It's all part of the way it works, And so there's ups and downs and pros and cons. It ain't all good, but you take the gift and you make the best of it. And on a day like today, it's a powerful thing.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful.
And it's interesting because you can go down the list of stories and the list of memories, and
Man,
you said earlier, and I if I'd had a notepad out, I'd have taken the note, but it stuck with me because you carry the burden that a lot of those families do.
It's heavy.
And it's hard because I know for you there's the element of, so much of your success has come from that song. But I hope that people see, that are watching this and seeing the tears you're fighting through and the emotions, that success has come with a price.
Yeah, I mean,
because you feel it.
if you don't want to do the part that comes after the big hoorah, then don't put it out there, because I see that, I believe with all of my heart and soul that was a gift from God to us. But it wasn't just to give Darryl Worley some big award or to give him some big blessing. It was a lot more down the work road that goes with the success of this song than what I knew anything about.
Yeah.
And so I'm not complaining by any means, but all that has been heaped on my shoulders over these years. And guess what? I'm happy to carry it. But it's aged me. It's taken its toll on me. Mm-hmm. You can't care about people and not be affected by that.
Yeah.
It takes its toll.
So it's interesting. I mentioned, we've always got your guitar here. And now that I got you good and choked up, let's sing something. We
Perfect timing.
It's interesting because I just assumed we would sing. I say we, you, not me, would sing "Have You Forgotten?" But don't hesitate if you want to sing "Have We Forgotten?"
No, I wouldn't today.
Not today.
Nah.
You want to stick to "Have You Forgotten?"
Yeah, because it's just when you. I can't help but relive it.
Yeah.
And and it's so it's appropriate.
Okay.
It
I was
couldn't
giving you an
be-
out there in
No,
case.
it couldn't-
I know.
It couldn't be more appropriate. So, no, I'm good with the song. I do have a soft spot in my heart and soul for people, and I tell you, Travis, the stories. As soon as people start relating all this stuff to you, your first thought process is you can't make this up.
Yeah.
Some of the things that I've heard, and I mean, I don't know how a lot of them have lived through it. And the truth is some of them didn't make it because they couldn't handle it, and they have fallen as a victim under the pressure of the burdens and things that this event is so much more far-reaching than what most people could ever fathom, and how it's affected individuals and families, and it's just. But I mean, it's that way with a lot of things. If you think about the Holocaust, I mean, if you think about this or that, I'm not comparing the two. I'm just saying that those types of big historical events are long-reaching, and it'll affect this nation and its people forever.
Right.
I would say so. You want me to play Have You Forgotten Now?
I'd love for you to. Now, remember last time you liked taking the headphones off.
I'm
and
going
so
to.
I figured we'd take those off and.
Man, this seems almost. It's weird to. Think about all this, talk about all this, and then do the song. I mean, this is a huge part of my life. I think about my family, my friends, how it's affected everything in my life, and I really think about my fans a lot when I think about this song, because they have seen me in every kind of debate, debacle. They've seen me fighting mad, and they've seen me broken. And this song had a lot to do with all of that. I was never a war hawk. They called me that for writing this song. It's not even about that. I saw the sacrifice of those men and women overseas, and that, with the combination of the events that had happened here on our own soil, it just made me realize how very, very important it is for us to recognize the sacrifices of others. That's the gist of this song. I hear people say we don't need this war. I say there's some things worth fighting for. What about our freedom and this piece of ground? We didn't get to keep 'em by backing down. They say we don't realize the mess we're getting in. Before you start your preaching, let me ask you this, my friend. Have you forgotten how it felt that day to see your homeland under fire and her people blown away? Have you forgotten when those towers fell? We had neighbors still inside, going through a living hell. And you say we shouldn't worry about Bin Laden. Have you forgotten? They took all the footage off my TV, said it's too disturbing for you and me. It'll just breed anger. That's what the experts say. If it was up to me, I'd show it every day. Some say this country is just out looking for a fight. After 9/11, man, I'd have to say that's right. Have you forgotten how it felt that day to see your homeland under fire and her people blown away? Have you forgotten when those towers fell? We had neighbors still inside, going through a living hell, and we vowed to get the ones behind Bin Laden. Have you forgotten? Been there with the soldiers who've gone away to war. You can bet that they remember just what they're fighting for. Have you forgotten all the people killed? Yeah, some went down like heroes in that Pennsylvania field. Have you forgotten about our Pentagon, all the loved ones that we lost, and those left to carry on? Now we don't have to worry about Bin Laden. Have you forgotten? Have you forgotten? Have you forgotten? Thank y'all. Oh, we have not.
You know, I really don't know where to go from there. I've got two other notes that I want to hit, so I'm just gonna feel like that was meant to be, and I'm gonna rearrange these. You know, you talk about the field in Pennsylvania and Flight 93, and
We did a bunch of stuff with those folks. We helped build that memorial there.
really,
Yeah, you know, and not there's not a dozen people that know that.
Yeah.
We did, you know, that's the thing, and I love it. We didn't run out and, you know,
yeah, that's not who you are.
we just try to help folks.
You were trying to sacrifice right there with them. That's neat. Mike's pulled up the Flight 93 Memorial, and you and I were talking earlier about how, you know, I was listening to some of the phone calls and things, and I can't imagine a parent. There was a parent of one of the four guys, and I'm not going to mention names because I feel like if I mention one person's name, I should mention every person in that side of it. So
It's so hard.
It is, but that mother that told her son,
Oh, buddy.
"Hey, you do what's right.
Yeah,
You
go
do it. I know I'm never going to speak to you again, my son."
You know, but they you know, talk about going out the right way. I mean, you know, you can't, you know, and what an accomplishment and what a feeling to know that in your last act you defended everything that you stood for.
Yeah.
You defended everyone you knew.
And protected the U.S. Capitol.
Yes.
You know, it came back later
Yes.
that's where the plans were,
That's
that
right.
was heading, and what an iconic landmark, not to mention probably another 1,000, 2,000 lives.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
and like you said earlier, that was the start. In my mind, that was the start of us fighting back.
Yes.
Hey,
Yes.
you know what? You threw a couple licks this morning.
if you
But we've got our bearings, and I've got chills because there's people making phone calls.
You're right.
As Americans, we've got our bearings.
Yes.
And we're already swinging back.
Everybody you talk to in the war zone would tell you, especially the first trip over there in 2003, would tell you that was the first battle.
Yeah.
Those guys fought the first battle unarmed. So we're blessed to have these weapons and these tanks, and they tell you that. They saw it that way, so that's the way it was. You know, they were fighting back right there. I mean, and you know, it's that American fighting spirit that you know, it started all of this stuff that we're talking about. And but man, when I look at you know, I brought up the long reaching. There's a song that we do, or that we recorded. Nobody ever wants to hear it more than one time because it's so heavy. It's called 22, and you probably haven't heard it, but it's a song about how this event affected our young fighting men and women going forward for years and years and years. And you know, I've spent so many days at Walter Reed and Bethesda visiting people who had lost limbs or that was about to lose a leg or whatever, all because of this. The one day, the one act, all of the, and their lives are changed forever. Not to mention the 21 a day that couldn't fit back in and try to figure out how to make it work in this society that we do nothing for those people when they come home.
Nothing, yeah.
Nothing. We say, thanks for the hard work, good luck, you know? So, I mean, the list of casualties goes on and on and on and on, and it's heavy.
Yeah. Would you mind playing any of that? Or tumble through
You know,
a little bit of it, or
yeah, I'll give you.
because I hadn't heard that one, and
Yeah,
that
you
would
need to
be
hear it.
I'd love to hear part of it, and I think there are people that would love to hear it too.
Let's see if
you
I
don't
can-
mind, just
No,
you
no,
know.
I don't. But I don't know how much of this I'll be able to recall because I won't be able to probably do the whole song. But you can't unsee what I saw. You can't get back what I lost. Left home a kid, I came back a fully grown man. I lost both of my legs and 5 of my friends. And nothing makes sense. I never thought I'd be staring down the barrel of my own gun. Oh Lord, can I still go to heaven? I got nowhere else left to run. You can't have back who I was. I'm still the one that you love. I can't expect you to live with a man you don't know. So if you have to go, fight you I won't. Hate you, I don't. I never thought I'd be staring down the barrel of my own gun. Oh Lord, can I still go to heaven after all of the things that I've done? Now, I've lost a wife and 5 brothers, my kids, and the man that I was. I thought that I'd left the front lines, but the fight for my life rages on. We've lost 21 soldiers in only a day. That's the unthinkable truth. So I'll lay down my gun, I'll soldier on, and I will not be 22. Yeah, I'll lay down my gun, I'll soldier on, and I will not be 22. I guess I remembered more of it than I thought I would. That's reality.
You know, it's interesting because when the idea of this episode being on September 11th and talking about the things that happened that day didn't come full circle till just now, that struggle, the actions from that day,
Far-reaching. Yeah, it only dies when they die, and it'll still carry on through their offspring. It's you think about some of these guys that have taken their own life. Imagine how that's going to affect their children.
Yeah.
It's just
their legacy. I mean, that's their.
So when you ask me about the whole death penalty thing,
Changes. There's
well,
your
it's
perspective.
just that's I would hope that people that watch this and don't agree with me, which I don't. That's fine if you don't agree with me. And I will champion your right to believe what you want to. I don't know how many times I got called down in the war zone by active duty people for saying something about maybe some American leader that I didn't care for. They would say to me, "Now wait a second. Some people that are over here fighting Americans, they some of them like that guy, and we're fighting for the same side that you're on." It's just you just learn so much from going through this stuff, and so, but I cannot help. I cannot help but feel the far-reaching effects of this event, and I don't think most people get.
They don't
that.
understand.
I don't think most people get that because it hasn't affected their life the way it has affected mine.
Yeah,
and that's not going to change for me. And I don't want it to. I'm not complaining, but I will tell you that it's heavy.
Yeah.
It's part of what has taken its toll on me over the years, outside my own stupidity and things that I do. But I'm just saying.
We won't go there on this episode. That's next week on Sounds Like Life podcast. But so totally, having that the producer moment as we speak, I'd love to get with you, and I know Julianne can help us with this, to get Mike some links and some things where people can remember that this cause is still important. We still need to be contributing to families. We need to be taking care of those that took care of us. And so, folks, it's that struggle is still real, and we need to be diligent about it. And kind of on my side of this, not to wrap us up. I know that we've far surpassed the 1 hour mark, and I really don't care because airtime's free. So that's the beautiful part about this is I want to tell a story that I heard, and then I want to give you a moment to kind of conclude us in some way, shape, or form. But I thought this was so fitting. There was a guy named Rick Riscola, and I hope I'm saying that correctly, but Rick Riscola, and he was referred to as the guardian angel. Just again, it was one of those when you say that moment of I'm going through all these notes and trying to figure out what stories. I just heard God say, "This is the close of this," because he was the guy who was basically head of security for the World Trade Centers, and he came out and said, "We've got some serious issues." He's right here. They've got him on one of the megaphones. After the first attack, he said, "They will come back, and they will come by air." And so 4 times a year, he had them practice leaving that tower. So that man saved more lives than were lost. And what I thought was so fascinating and just had me squalling was he went back in. He was there to help lead people out. But he sang to them. Yeah. Because he knew there were a lot of people that at that moment couldn't get up.
Right.
They couldn't walk out. And he couldn't carry them all. But he just sang, and he just tried to comfort people and tried to keep people calm and just hope that his contribution meant something to them, whether they were going to get out or if that was the last thing he heard.
Yeah.
That those people heard music.
He did something good.
And then he lost his life fighting for them. And I just thought that was one of the heroes that I had not heard that story. And so for him to use music as a comfort and as a tool,
that was probably because
like you've done so many times.
His mama probably sang to him when he was struggling as a baby. I know mine did.
Yeah. And so,
you know, so powerful, dude. I mean, and the stories are endless.
Yeah.
I have a couple in New York City that I've come to know through just different events and things that I've been asked to do. I'm going toward the end of the week to do a thing with tunnels to towers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they build the houses for veterans that need specialty homes because of their handicaps and what have you. Anyway, this couple I met at several different events and just got to know them over the years. And on that day, they lost 2 of their sons. One of their sons was a firefighter, and the other was a police officer, and they both died in there trying to help those people out. And you know, how does a mom and dad? And they were not young people even then, so they're obviously a lot older now, and just one story after another, man. And I guess I was at an age where I didn't have any children yet, you know, and I was still footloose and fancy free, but an older footloose and fancy free, if you will, because I didn't get my recording contract until I was 35. So I had some years on me, and I just think I was at a prime age to see what this really did to people, especially here, you know, in the United States. So, but it honestly, it's like therapy sitting here talking to you about it. It does my heart good because, I do get a lot of, you know, the heavy stuff. I had a lady come off the set at Fox and Friends one day, and we were getting ready to go on, and she said she had tried to talk to me before, and I didn't see her, and I had to go right out there and play Have You Forgotten. She told me there she was a Gold Star mom and that her son joined the service because of Have You Forgotten.
Wow.
And he died in combat. And then I found that out, and I'm going, and I got to go out there. As a matter of fact, she and I didn't get to talk until after my performance. They said it. Once I sat down with them and I could hear, they said it to me. And I thought, and now you're going to ask me to play and sing this song on national TV,
television.
But we did it. It's all right. It's just, I don't think people like I said before, I don't think people get the far-reaching
the
effects.
depths.
Yes,
the depths.
It's deep and wide. So, well, man, I think we've covered it. That's an hour 15.
And we could go for another. So
yes, we could.
probably we can save some of those, and this is a great time to plug the voicemail line, because this conversation will not end.
No.
And so, we would love to hear more stories from you on the voicemail line. And so reach out to us so that we can hear that. And
I'm going to say this too right now, because, we kind of put it out here during this episode that, I didn't ever expect to get anything out of this, really.
Mm-hmm.
It has blessed my life in so many ways. And that's why I'm really open to people who struggle with some part of this whole thing. Maybe they lost someone, maybe they were involved in it, who knows? But, should anyone ever call in that just wanted to speak to me or thought maybe a word with me might help them in some way, I'd be all about it.
Okay.
Just letting you know.
Yeah.
I'm saying it right up here on the...
Yeah.
Because I ain't got time to talk to everybody, but some things stick out sometimes in the mix, and you go,
I
that
need to
might
talk
be
to
a
that.
good thing.
Yeah.
And so you guys just let me know if you hear anything like that. So,
well, thank you for that. And thank you for sharing all of this. Thank you for writing an incredible song, and for I know what you've meant to so many people.
thank you for helping me get through this episode.
Yeah. we're gonna have to do a fun one next or something, because this
I
was
may have to. We may
a
have to go find some firefighters and water this down.
yeah, there you go. Good way to put it.
All right, brother.
All right.
Sounds Like Life with Darryl Worley is a Blue Spire Media production, hosted by Darryl Worley and Travis McLeese, produced and edited by Mike Murphy and Sam Hudson, lighting by Micah Powell, set design by Sam Hudson, theme song Sounds Like Life to Me by Darryl Worley, executive producers Jeff Limanowski and Julianne Drennan.